So there you have it. An origin story telling you how I unfucked my life, and also a life lesson about basically the secret of life. So what do you think of my new office? It's not bad, is it? Now I had to drive 2,000 miles or so to get here, and also there's a lot of just travel experience and a kind of accumulated wisdom and resources that have enabled me to get into situations like this. And I thought, as I was driving down, it might be a good idea to just kind of tell that story of how things were when I started and I didn't know what I was doing and I was an idiot. And yeah, so that's what we've done. It's just basically me sitting in a van talking. We're going to try and spice it up, make it a bit more visually interesting. So I do hope you'll enjoy it. My name is Chris, and this is the Gnomecast. It's interesting to compare the situation I'm in now, where mirrors move to get on the side. It's interesting to compare the situation that I'm in now with when I first left the UK after my life went tits up in the past. And the first time around, all I could do was just stand by the road with my thumb out, and I guess I had a map, or at least a map in my head, and I didn't know where I was going or what was going to happen next. I was just going into the wilderness, and I ended up the next day I was in France. And this time around I've got the internet, and you can look for places to go before you set off. We might have to do a video just about the online resources that I use these days. But basically I'm going to a house. I've got a place to stay for a few days, and then I've got a farm to look after for 3 weeks. So that gives me a whole month of my life already planned out in advance. Compared with me landing in the city of Grenoble in middle south of France, hitchhiking, but going to a youth hostel, paying for accommodation. I only had £150 in my pocket, whereas now I have cryptocurrency accounts and bank accounts and shares invested in the stock exchange, money that I could call on if I need to, as well as my kind of cash, my operating capital. And I hung out in this youth hostel for maybe a week, 10 days, just looking for a job. And I went to the local job centre and I looked in the newspapers and I found ads for people who were looking to hire painters, house painters, because this was something I'd done a lot of, and it seemed like, you know, it was going to be the easiest job to find because it didn't involve dealing with people, and I didn't speak French especially well. And I remember having a telephone interview with a potential employer, but really I was really struggling when I was managing to get through it. And he was asking me if I had a carte de séjour, a residence card, a card that says you're allowed to be in France. And I was trying to explain to him that, well, in the European Union today, you don't need a card de séjour to get a job. You get a job, and then you go to a government office, and they say, okay, you live here now. We issue this card that says that you live here. Because as a British citizen, I was a European citizen. And nobody knew how the system works. It was all this new thing. So the guy just refused to hire me. And these days it's totally different. I remember landing in Germany. You know, that must be 7 or 8 years ago. And yet renting an apartment for a few months. And you have to register yourself with the police. Okay, I live here now. And I went to this police office, showed them my passport, they filled in a form. Took 2 minutes. typed me into the computer. And 2 days later, I received a notice from the tax office saying, "Welcome to Germany. We assume you're going to be looking for a job. Here is your tax number. You can now start work." So back then it was really, really difficult, but I really struggled. Nowadays, if you have the right citizenship, it's a lot easier. If you don't have European citizenship, you're fucked, because everything's much tighter, much more controlled than it was way back when. So what happened to me was, I was getting low on cash, and I realized that France was the wrong place to be. And I just kind of hitchhiked randomly again. And I ended up in Germany. And this woman picked me up one evening. We're driving along, and she was telling me all about all the British people that were in towns in Eastern Germany doing construction work and painting houses. This is good, because the Berlin Wall had come down 5 years before the Soviet Union had collapsed completely. Germany had reunified, and the government was spending a fortune upgrading and rebuilding everything in East Germany. And there was loads and loads of work. There were loads of British people working there, and I thought, right, this sounds like my thing. So I ended up in the city of Leipzig. And it was Friday night, and I checked into a youth hostel, and I had just enough money to pay for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday night, 4 nights, because Monday was a bank holiday, which meant everything that was going to be closed. And that was it. I had no more money. I was totally skilled. I didn't even have money to eat over the next 4 days. And the next morning I went out into the town and I walked around. There was like a Christmas market, but not a Christmas market, a holiday market, because of this public holiday, which was celebrating the anniversary of German reunification. And I didn't really know what to do, and I had to pass the university to get there, so I nobbled the student, got him to help me write a little sign that says, "I don't want charity, I need a job." I was a painter in England for years and years. And I went and I just sat near the entrance to this fair, this Sunday market that was happening. And a few people came up to me to try and give me advice. Of course, I spoke no fucking German, and I couldn't communicate with them. I remember somebody telling me which newspaper to look in. He was explaining about this Zeitung that you must look in. And I was just, sorry, thank you, but I've no idea what to say. And then this girl on rollerblades just, boom, she pirouetted off, came to a stop in front of me. She was tall and blonde and blithe and willowy, and about 11 years old, unfortunately. So that could have been a really great story. But she was really domineering and commanding me. She just said, come in. Then she just led me off, and I followed her. Just, okay, what's going on now? And she was working, handing out leaflets to advertise some event at this market, and her boss needed 2 or 3 more people handing out leaflets. So he just shook hands with me, gave me a big box of leaflets, and said, come back at 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock or whatever. I don't know, just spent the next 5-6 hours just walking around handing out leaflets to me. And at the end of the day, this guy gave me a bunch of cash money. Fantastic. So I had enough money then that I could eat for the rest of the weekend. And on the Tuesday morning, absolutely stint, I went out, started walking around the town, looking for building sites where I could get a job, and I just walked into everyone. And I knew just enough German to say, I am a painter, I'm looking for a job. Ich bin Maler, ich suche Arbeit. That was basically all the German that I knew. And I was 3-4 hours traipsing around the town, absolutely no success. And then there was this huge building site, was the telecom building, new headquarters for Deutsche Telekom for the whole of East Germany, a huge building. And I saw some painters all dressed in their white overalls walking down a staircase inside this building. And I went over and I managed to catch one of them. And I said, yeah, hello, ich bin Maler, suche Arbeit. And this guy turned around and he said, don't speak German, mate. I said, oh, you're English, cool. And we had a chat. And he was with a big crowd, there were about 20 of them. And they were working for an agency in the Netherlands that had found the job. Because most Dutch people speak English and also German, so they were the ideal middleman. And you know, the way the paperwork functioned was the German company would hire the Dutch painting contractor, which was perfectly legal for the Germans, they were happy. And then the Dutch would just hire a British painting contractor to do work in Germany. They weren't hiring anybody to do anything in the Netherlands. So there was no paperwork required in the Netherlands. So it was this kind of grey area legally as to who your employer was, who you were working for, and whether you were really legal or not, but nobody seemed to care. And these lads just gave me a phone number to call the number. I don't think they even called the number. I think he was just okay. Speak to the, I spoke to the German Polier, the Vorleinser, the foreman. And he just kind of nodded and said, yeah, okay, done. Thanks to sofort an, you can start now. And he put me to work with a group of German guys rather than putting me with the other English. Because I tried to speak a little bit of German, I was the only one that had made any effort at all. The rest of these English lads were a little bit hostile towards the Germans. Didn't want to learn the language, and it was their defensive mechanism, you know, whenever the boss told them anything, they would just stand there and go, well, whatever, I don't know, and then carry on doing what they were doing, because all you need is somebody to give you some paint and point at a wall or a window or whatever, and you know what's involved. So there was no communication between the German contractor and the English subcontractors. So he put me with these other Germans because it meant that I would start to pick up more and more German. But very quickly, whenever he needed anything explaining, he would come and find me and take me with him. And I remember going to look at something that somebody had done, and it was just shit quality of work. The lad had just rushed through it, hadn't taken any care, hadn't prepped it properly. And he's trying to explain it to me in German, and I'm just like, yeah, no, I can see it. And then he finds the English lad that is responsible and says to me, tell him. And I just looked at the lad and says, come on, he's not happy, you know what's wrong with that, don't you? So that was my life for the next month or two. I was just working on a huge German building site, rolling, big roller on a pole, roller in the walls, and being dragged off occasionally to translate, and being a bit unpopular because of it. But I had absolutely no fucking money the day I got hired. I was literally skinned. And I went back to the youth hostel that night, and I hadn't checked out. I just left all my stuff on my bed. And I just apologized, and I groveled, and I begged, and I gave them my passport to hold on to. And eventually they agreed they were going to let me stay until my first payday, this was a Tuesday, and my first payday was the following Wednesday. And that's great, I've got a bed, so I've no food. So I'm in my room, and it's a dormitory, and there's 8-10 people in this room, and I was just chatting with a young student who had just arrived in town, just started university, was looking for a place to stay, proper apartment. And it was a super nice lad, and he said, "Oh, come on, I'll buy you dinner." We went out, we just got a takeaway, like a kebab, and I think a kebab was 5 Deutschmarks at the time, which would be the equivalent of about 2.5-3 euro today. And we ate, and then he loaned me, I didn't even ask him, he just said, "No, I can lend you some money," and he loaned me, I think it might have been 200 bahts, or even 100 bahts, I don't know, but it was enough that I could eat every day for the next 8 days until I actually got paid. And I got paid a week later on the Wednesday night, and it wasn't even a week's money. It was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I think we were working Saturdays as well, half days at least. And I can remember just walking on with this wad of cash, and I had been effectively bankrupt in the UK, working crazy hours and just having no money, and then living on social security for ages. I had never had any money in my pocket, and I came back to the hostel, and young Marcus was there, and I said, "Right, mate, hold out your hand," and I counted out all the money that I owed him. I said, "Right, come on, let's go out and we had a big dinner." I had loads of beer, and then I came back to the hostel and I paid them everything I'd owed them, and I paid in advance, a whole week in advance, and I still had a big pocket full of money, and I was just, the feeling of, right, I'm back, I'm alive, was just unbelievable. It was incredible. But having told that story, I don't want to ever be there again. It seemed like over the next few years, I could just never really get ahead. That particular job on the construction site was alright for a while, but the bad weather was coming, and the building trade generally is notorious for people not getting paid for their work. And when you're employed by somebody who's 1,000 miles away in another country, the people running the site that you're on don't want to know about your financial problems, and it's really, really easy to get shafted. So I ended up, I'd worked a full week, and then after the next weeks to get paid, I just didn't get the money, and I had a little bit in my pocket from the previous few weeks, but that didn't last very long. I moved into an apartment with some other guys and made the rent, so I was stuck there, and I was too stupid to know what was going to happen. And then I couldn't find anything else, and I was really running out of money, and it's December in Germany, the snow on the ground, it's freezing bloody cold, and I realised I'm in the wrong place now. So eventually I packed my bag, stuck my thumb out, and I headed south for the winter, and I went all the way across Germany, down through France, all the way down through Spain to Gibraltar. And I picked Gibraltar kind of out of insecurity. I didn't know what I was doing or where I was going, and Gibraltar's kind of English. It was English speaking, they used sterling, pound sterling. And I just thought, okay, well, I'll go there, and then to be a bit like home, only in the sun. Then I got there, and it took me a while to get there. It was quite a trek. And I ran out of money. And I remember as I crossed the border from Spain, I had 200 pesetas in my pocket, the old Spanish buying, and that's just enough money to buy a can of Coke in a vending machine. It's not enough money to do anything else with, so I bought a can of Coke. I walked through the border and walked into Gibraltar, drinking away my last money. Gibraltar's a small town, a lot of pubs, the bars and restaurants, but it's basically just one street, big high street, and I walked the length of the high street on one side of the road, going into every restaurant and bar along the way, anywhere that looked like there might be the possibility of getting it going, asking for a job and telling me, like, I really need a job, I've got no money, I'm scared. And one guy, fish and chip shop, actually gave me a meal, which was alright. And then I was in a place and they didn't need me, but the boss was telling me, no, we can't employ you. But the other young lad behind the counter said, like, are you okay? Where are you going to sleep tonight? And I said, I don't know, at the beach, I guess. He said, oh, come back at 4 o'clock or 6 o'clock or whatever, when you go off work. And come down with me. So I came back, but this lad was from South Africa. And he was a crew on a sailing boat that was on delivery run from Greece to South Africa, a hell of a journey. And they'd stopped in Gibraltar to prepare the boat for this long Atlantic Ocean crossing. They were going to be there a month or two. So he found himself this little job in this little fish and chip shop. And he took me down to be the skipper of the boat, a young lad, and explained the situation. And the skipper said, oh, it's alright, I'll just send a message to the owner telling him that we've taken on another crew member. And then all your food will be paid for. So 8 hours after walking across the border with empty pockets, I was living on a luxury boat with all my food and accommodation paid for. And the next day we all got drunk in the afternoon. And I wasn't, I was fairly sober, but the other lad, Ray, was quite drunk. I said, oh, I can't go to work, I'm supposed to go to work at 6 o'clock, what am I going to do? I said, oh, don't worry, I'll go. So I just turned up at his workplace and said, oh, Craig's sick, couldn't come to work, he asked me to stand in for him. I wasn't a lot they could do. So I worked his shift. And at the end of the night, the boss said, oh, that was not bad, Chris, yeah, can you work again tomorrow? So then me and Craig were both working at the same place, so it was on top. So I really fell on my feet, everything was alright again. And I did that for a month, then the boat left. And they asked me to come with them. Opportunity to sail the Atlantic on a boat to South Africa. And I've always wondered what would have happened if I said yes. But the job I was doing was really poorly paid, but I hadn't been there very long, so I had virtually no savings. And it would have meant arriving in South Africa without any visa, without any money. I wasn't ready for that kind of adventure. And I don't know if I would do it today. Because being on your own, being lost somewhere without any money is no fun at all. I think I much prefer having a bank account with some cash in it and a 40-year-old camper van to drive around it and knowing where I'm going.
So that's how it all started. And it was a bit of a fuck up, wasn't it? But on the other hand, it was like things kept going right anyway. You're fucked up, you're in the wrong place, your life is shit, you stick your thumb out, you end up somewhere interesting, and after a while you realize it's the wrong place, so you stick your thumb out again and you move, and you kind of fall on your feet. Everything works out okay, you're getting by, starting to accumulate a bit of cash, then it goes pear-shaped and you realize right now at this time in this place it's the wrong place. So you put your thumb out again and you go somewhere else. I hitchhiked halfway across Europe and bang, just like magic, like I'd fallen on my feet again and I'd found a new place, and I stuck with it. The situation changed, the boys left in the boat and I had to figure out what to do next, and you know, it turned out it wasn't really the right place for me, but looking back at that moment it was exactly what I needed. So maybe it was the right place, and the definition of the right place and the wrong place kind of changes with time. Let's leave it at that. We'll come back next week and we'll talk about another year, 6 months of not being able to get ahead, of kind of being in the wrong place and struggling and scrabbling, and eventually I made good.